Peace, love, and light. This is your sister, Dr. Ma'at, coming before you again tonight. Tonight is not going to be a truth to power talk, okay? Tonight is not going to be a truth to power talk. Tonight is actually the first discussion of the Read Book Club. This is our first meeting and our first discussion. But before we get started with tonight's book club discussion, I want to dedicate this live show to our beloved brother, DMX, who just transitioned on Friday. And, he was one of my favorite rappers growing up. I'm an 80s baby. So in the 90s, I was a teenager. And DMX was one of my favorite rappers. I had his first album, It's Dark and Hell is Hot. His second album, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. His second album was really one of my favorites. But both of those two, to me, are the classics of DMX. And I just want to dedicate this show to that brother. Right now, the white media is attacking him. I mean, they're going all the way in, not just discussing the issues that he had, but they're talking about all of his foreclosures and his marital issues. And you know how white media is, they don't never, they don't let up, racism and white supremacy never lets up. Right. And so they're attacking this brother. And so let's continue to pump out positive media, for our brother, So anyway, guys, I'm going to stop on my rant and I'm going to go ahead and get tonight's book club started. I have with me in the building, Brother Sean and Brother Everett. Go ahead and introduce yourselves to the people. Go ahead, Brother Sean. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, yes. My name is Sean Polador here in Louisiana, representing for the South. I always say the South got something to say, like Outkast said so eloquently. And I'm a public speaker, self-published author of 5 books, and also a professor of psychology.
Beautiful. Brother Everett, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, brother. You got to unmute your mic. Well, let me unmute you. Okay, there we go.
All right. Everett Winchester, host of Real Truth and Power podcast and the Real Truth and Power Black Trivia Game Show, and also Division Secretary of the Baltimore UNIA, Barker Clark, named after Hannibal Barker, and great scholar John Henry Clark.
Well, brothers, is a pleasure to have you on the platform. I've connected with the two of you over the years, and we talked on social media back and forth. And I'm a huge fan of your work. I know you're a huge fan of my work, and so it's a pleasure to have you on the platform tonight. So tonight, family, we are talking about Birth of a White Nation. Birth of a White Nation, the invention of white people and its relevance today, by Dr. Jacqueline Battalora. I actually had Dr. Jacqueline Battalora on the Truth to Power Talk last year. I think it was around June or July-ish. But make sure, and a matter of fact, while we're talking, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So when you get a chance, be sure to check out that interview. All right. So tonight we're going to be discussing actually the introduction of Birth of a White Nation. All right. And this is for the RED Book Club. I have a t-shirt. Look, Everett. Look at this. I got the t-shirt, Everett.
Oh, wow. I got to get one of them.
Uh-oh. Yes. Uh-oh. We got that.
That's nice.
Let me slide back a little bit. Hold on so you can really see it. But the Read Book Club. And so you could get the t-shirts from Hockey Customs on Instagram. So that's at Hockey. I think it's _customs with a Z. So let me put that up. So at Hockey Customs, you can go there and holler at that brother. Tell him that you saw Dr. Ma'at rocking the Read Book Club t-shirt and you need one. And he'll get one to you expeditiously, in the words of T.I. Expeditiously. He'll make sure that you get a t-shirt. But yeah, tonight we're going to be discussing Birth of a White Nation. And so every Sunday, family, join us here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know we're getting started a little late today. Dr. Ma'at was trying to work off some of these COVID-19 pounds. And so I was walking and I was trying to rush home to get back here, and it just didn't work out. Got back here and then I had to shower up and then make my tea. And so I just said, you know what, it is what it is. So we started when we were supposed to start. But anyway, family, join us back here next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about chapter 1 of Birth of a White Nation. So if you don't have the book, don't worry about it. If I were you, I would sit like tonight. You can still participate in the discussions. Grab the book. Try to get it before next Sunday. All right. Try to get it before next Sunday so that you won't be lost with chapter 1. Brother Everett, I read the introduction today. And when I say this introduction had me hooked, I wanted to read more, but I just said, you know what? Let me just relax. But I feel like she really laid the ground. I mean, she really laid out the book. She did a wonderful job. She talked about her whiteness. She talked about what it meant to be a white woman, the reality of a white woman. And I love how she repeatedly said, Brother Everett, that the term white people, it's a social construct. She said it over and over and over again. She said it's a human category that was made up. And I want to define for you what a social construct is. And I'm not talking about the panel. I'm just talking about the viewers. I want to define for you, what is a social construct? A social construct is something that exists not in objective reality, but as a result of human interaction. It exists because humans agree that it exists. So a lot of us had issues. Remember back in the day when the Moors used to come and tell you, well, the definition of black is a status, and we thought the Moors were just crazy. The Moors were 100% correct on that. That when you call yourself black, when you call yourself white, these are made up human categories that are related to your status. And let me tell you when it hit home for me, not just the Moor Science Temple brothers who were talking about it. One of my mentors, her name is Dr. Cynthia Nevadon Morton, and she taught at Coppin State University in the Department of History for about 35 or 40 years. And she told me that in the 70s, when she traveled to Africa, she had to travel to Africa under the status white. And so at the time, I said, well, what do you mean? Because I thought at that particular time that white was a race. I mean, I was young, I was ignorant. What do you mean you had to travel under the status of white? And that's when I began to realize that when you say white person, there's no such thing as a white person. There's no such thing as a black person, right? I mean, I'm talking about in this context because I have a brother who's going to come on and talk about how in Africa, there were times when we referred to ourselves as black people. But I'm talking about in this Euro-American context, right? When you say black, when you say white, these are human categories that are connected with a status. And I feel like she did that beautiful, Brother Everett, when she wrote her introduction. But what are your thoughts, Brother Everett, about the introduction?
I thought the introduction was very powerful. It took me back to a book you had done by Dr. Claude Anderson, Powernomics, when she started talking about that. He broke that down a little bit. And a lot actually about, that social thing about how we're a class and things of that nature. And that just made me think about Dr. Anderson right off the bat. She was just breaking that down, and it really stuck with me because he used that same terminology. She got into it a little deep and broke it down as in terms of how it affects us, how they looked at us, how it started. He also mentioned the facts of Maryland, where I'm from, and how a lot of things happened. Maryland had a lot to do with that. As far as when the blacks first came over, we were indentured slaves. We had the ability to buy our freedom, and we had the ability to, buy land and things of that nature, and how it changed. And she said she's going to get into it in the first, I think the first 1 or 2 chapters. So that really just got me, like you said. I didn't want to go too far into it. But that part alone just stuck with me. And I just thought about Powernomics and Dr. Anderson, how he was talking about it. That really stuck and hit home.
Brother Sean, go ahead and add to the bill, brother. What were your thoughts about the introduction, brother?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I want to say that we're doing this book in perfect timing because as of late, in the past 2 weeks, I've had multiple white people come to me in the inbox and they say, look, I see all your posts, all the books that you post. Could you please explain to me these social issues? Explain to me, I'm from Wisconsin, for an example, one person, And racism is different up here versus down here in Louisiana. I don't understand this whole racism thing. Would you please explain this to me? And The Birth of White is a book that I always recommend our, white people because she breaks so many things down in simple, plain terms. I think that Birth of White should be read by everybody across the board. And yes, I love whenever she's breaking down. A lot of people don't realize there were white slaves. They have a book called White Cargo. I read that book years ago, White
Teach,
Cargo.
teach,
And
teach,
they break
teach.
down the white people that were slaves right alongside us. And like she said in the book, we worked together. We did planned escapes together. They actually had relationships together because I'm a slave, you a slave. There was no separation in that. And not many
Mm-hmm.
people realize that because whenever you're born into something, you think it's how it's always been. You can't imagine what it was like before. So that's something that I really took away from the introduction to give a few things. I read this book like 2 years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to read it again with you all to be able to discuss it and dialogue and break it down. And so I'm glad to read the book again.
Absolutely. And so she begins by saying that any exploration of race is inherently complex. And she said it's complex because personal experience can't be erased. So when you're talking about race, right, she's saying that it's complicated because the people who are writing, you can't separate, your experienced or your experiences happen or are shaped by your race, right? And so she's saying it's hard to erase your personal experiences, right, which are influenced by your race. So she said that's one reason why the exploration of race is inherently complex. And then two, she said because of the scholarship. She said scholarship addressing key historical questions is varied sometimes in opposition and sometimes indeterminate. The third factor, she said, is because language of race is problematic and confusing. So she said race, to have this conversation about race or this discussion about it, it's very complex. Brother Sean, you wanted to add?
Yes, please. Me speaking to these white people lately about this whole situation, you will be surprised, Doc. But then them trying to miseducate us, guess what they did? They miseducated their own as well.
Teach.
So we think it's common knowledge because we take for granted things that we know, like 2 plus 2 is 4. You will be surprised who don't know about Emmett Till situation. They don't know about Black Wall Street. They don't know about the Red Summer. I could name 1,000 things that is common to us. And these white people genuinely not being funny, they don't know about this.
Yeah, no,
They
you're
don't know
right.
about they don't know about their privilege.
They
I
don't.
said, I told this lady, I said, do you realize you're the most dangerous person in the country, not me? She said, huh? I said, yeah, you 5'4", 120 pounds. I should be scared of you way more than you seeing me with a hoodie on coming down the block. Because historically in documentation, we didn't burn down whole cities behind you.
Behind white women. And that's why, and that's brother, look, brother
Now,
Sean,
see,
don't get me
I'm gonna leave it
started.
at that.
Brother Sean, you're gonna get me started now. And
I'm
that's
gonna
why
leave it
I
at
look at
that.
so that's why I look at these brothers, and I don't want to, I'm not gonna bang on interracial relationships and marriages tonight, but I understand that a lot of it is due to internalized racism. A lot of it's due to,
Oof,
miseducation and ignorance, and so
oof.
I just, but like you said, I look at these brothers and these sisters when they start going outside. I said, do you know your history? Do you know who you're laying
I
down
got
with? Do
I
you
got
know the
one more,
nature?
Doc.
Come on, go ahead.
I
Come
got, I
on.
got I got one more to go along with what I just said, right? I realized something talking to them. They don't have to realize their privilege. You see, I have to know Emmett Till's story as a young black man.
That's right.
I have to know about how to conduct myself to this day about how I talk to a white woman, how I look at her, interact with her. She don't have to know. We got to be the ones that have the quote unquote black codes. You know what I'm saying?
That's
And I
right.
realized that
That's
the
right.
more I talk to them in private, and I appreciate the fact that they feel comfortable talking to me in that kind of setting, and being open and honest and things like that. So I just wanted to add that in there.
No, I'm glad that you did add that because
Yeah.
in the introduction, she said, my first conceptualization of myself is that I was born a young white child. We're born a young black, like we're born into our blackness in a sense. Like, so she says, by this, I mean that I saw myself as white and viewed it as an essential part of who I am. Same thing happens with black people, right? Then she says, having a biological reality that links me to all others who are white through a shared genetic sludge that is whiteness. She said, now I know better. Now I would say I was born female and made a white girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
She says, what has stayed consistent is that the status white has mattered in my life. My understanding of why it matters, though, has altered dramatically. And so, like you said, Brother Sean, you were born into this. We're born into this being called black children. And black, and understanding that we're black people. And we see the difference. Even as a child, Dr. Amos Wilson talks about this in his book, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. He said black children, we start noticing around 4, 5-ish, at an early age, who we are, what class we belong to at a very, very early age. And so I'm trying to move on to something. Oh, and in the introduction, I like how she talked about white folks and how they wanted to live around people who look like them, who shared the same skin tone, just like we do. She said economic status, color. And she talked about how every time black people would move into the neighborhood, she said her family and other families would move right on out of the neighborhoods.
That's that white flight.
That white flight. Yes. Yes. So she talked about that. And I love how, and I'm on probably the 4th or 5th page, she says one of the most confusing aspects of race is differentiating between the biological reality of race on one hand and the reality that the imposition of a racial group creates within society on the other hand. I don't think that people understand that there's no biological basis for race. All of us are what we call, all of us are Homo sapiens sapien. And they say that it's what, 1% or something that I think we differ about 1%, and that 1% is skin color, your eyes, your hair, but literally we're 99%, we're 99% the same. And so that's why when people were coming on YouTube with the pseudo crap, and I'm not going to call any names, and they were trying to make it seem like white people came from somewhere else, and then we came from, we're the mothers and fathers of humanity. Go ahead, Brother Sean.
Yeah. No, my brother has something. Mr. Everett. Go ahead. Mr. Everett.
Yeah. Good looking out, Brother Sean. I think also she was mentioning one point about how when we were in America, or when they were in America, how they tried to start using that white code to differentiate themselves from the British or something like that. And I think that was very key. How they started to. She mentioned even I want to say I think it might have been the Dutch. I can't remember. I cannot remember who it was. She was saying it.
I got your back.
Yeah, they had a little bit of melanin, but not a lot of melanin. And she just started basically breaking it down how we started grouping people in class. And another thing that really stuck out to me, and maybe you guys could elaborate on that, because I think it's happening now when we start talking about the census report, how that's very important, how she was mentioning how Mexicans will start classifying themselves as white. So she mentioned a little bit of points of that, which just made you want to I wish she would have elaborated, but she also mentioned what chapter she was going to go in. And I think that's very critical. She also mentioned a battle or uprising when it was slaves, whites, all of them uprising together. So she pretty much it seems to me that she's going to go into the breakdown of how that classification between white and blacks and everything started to happen. I thought that was very powerful.
And brother, you talking about Bacon's Rebellion.
That's what it was.
When the black, the Bacon Rebellion, when the black and white people got together and they rose up against the planet elite. And they said, she said, after that happened, they were like, wait a minute, we gotta do something to divide these folks, And so that's when, she talks about the invention of whiteness. Go ahead, Brother Sean. I think you wanted to get in there, brother.
But no, it's all good. But back to what we were talking about as far as how do you self-identify. My friends and I talk about self-identification a lot, right? Because if you ever go into the actual the U.S. government classifications on how they identify these classes and ethnic groups, and whenever you read Supreme's book, When the World Was Black, you understand that we people the whole globe first, right? So with that being understood, when I read these government classifications, I could literally check off every single box on there. But for the past 4 or 5 years, when I apply for a job or I do a census or everything else, I mark everything on there but black. I I qualify is all these other based on understand that
You're a little loud. There you go.
we we
Okay.
we, pe- we people the whole globe first. So therefore, you can't put me in one little small box as far as my self identification, and that's scientifically proven. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely. Ashe. And so I was looking here I wanted to expound on what Brother Everett said. It talks, and it's, I think this is page, oh my gosh, probably like maybe the fifth or sixth page. She talks about that in chapter 4, where the Mexicans, after the Treaty of Guadalupe and the declaration of Mexicans as white. So she's gonna
Right.
break that down in chapter 4. But I was looking to find the part where she talks about how they began to form the invention of whiteness along with the British. And you're right, Brother Everett. It did start with like the British elite, and then
Mm-hmm.
different whites or different Europeans started coming over, and then they started, adding more people to this category, this human category called white. But like you said, prior to, I don't know if she said 1670, but she said, no one called themselves white. It was, I'm British, I'm Irish,
Mm-hmm.
I'm this,
Yeah.
I'm that, and
It
and
was a
like,
particular locale. Hmm.
absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know,
So I'm
that
sitting.
also made me sorry to cut you off, Dr. Mott.
No,
That
no, no,
also
no.
made
Go
me
ahead.
think about culture, because as Africans, I'm sure we identified as a cultural people, how we lived, how we ate, how we moved, our spirituality. Um, and it seems that when they started to do that classification, it kind of eliminated a lot of our culture. If you look at the as I look at and read a lot of different books, you don't really hear about the white culture. You mostly hear about the spirituality of African culture. Even the Native Indians had certain culture to them. So that stuck out to me when she starts to classify. When they start to break down the classifications, they don't add culture into it. You know what I mean? It's just basically about the color, skin tone.
Excuse me
Absolutely.
one second, Doc. I gotta step out. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, no problem at all. And I love how she also talked about the arguments, Brother Everett, that are at hand. She says two debates going on, in the area of history. She said there's tremendous confusion about the status of Africans prior to the institutionalization of slavery, in part because the term slave was rarely applied to Africans prior to the 1640s, and because European servants were sometimes called slaves, as Brother Sean just said, right? And so she said there's some confusion about there, up there. She said there's also some confusion regarding whether or not racism preceded slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if slavery caused racism. She said it's like, so she says right here, whether racism preceded slavery is another question for which historians dispute the answer. So she said some people were saying yes, racism caused slavery, and then some historians are arguing that racism, I guess, is a byproduct of slavery. So what are your thoughts on that, Brother Everett?
That's a deep one because I think it goes back to like when we first came over here. A lot of people were indentured, blacks were indentured slaves, so they could buy their freedom, buy land and things of that nature. And it also happened around, she mentions Maryland and Virginia a lot.
Yes,
And they start,
yes,
and that's very important. They started changing laws and things to where slaves couldn't buy land. Black slaves couldn't buy the freedom back, then they couldn't buy land and stuff like that. And then it came to where they were permanently slaves. So I think a lot of that happens at that time, and I think that's critical. And I hope that I haven't read that far into the book yet, but I hope that she really elaborates on that time period. I think that time period when black people could buy their freedom back and things of that nature, and then it changed to where they can't. I think that's when that racism and that type of harshness to our people started to happen around that time. And I
around
think
that
that's
time.
a critical part. I hope she elaborates in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how she talks about the term race and how,
Mm-hmm.
and how it was derived. She says the term race is derived from a breeding line or stock of animals whose qualities are inheritable genetically. It says anthropologist Audrey Smedley explains that unlike other terms for classifying people, for example, nation, people, variety, kind, and so on. The term race places emphasis on innateness, on the inbreed, on the inbreed. I'm sorry, I'm looking on the inbreed of nature of whatever is being judged. And so we use these terms, Brother Everett, and don't even know what they mean, how they
Right.
were derived. We don't even know the etymology of them. We just use them. Oh, race, race, race. And you don't even understand why the word was created. And you get what I'm saying? And so I
Yes,
love how she
definitely.
talked about that. And she says, I have found no reasonable, useful way out of the conundrum that uses terminology for so-called racial categories presents. She says, as an imperfect response, I raise the concern up front and at the conclusion of the book in an effort to fracture and destabilize the otherwise solidifying efforts of such language use. So she's getting into how I love how she's talking about this category impacts white people, but I think she said humanizes them and then dehumanizes us, something to
Yes.
that
Yeah.
effect. Yeah, and
Exactly.
something to that effect. Go ahead, Brother Everett.
No, I was going to say you're exactly right. I'm not exactly sure how she worded it, but she pretty much said that. What's really alarming to me when she said she mentioned just piggybacking off of that, how race made her start taking up law. I think that's one of the reasons why she took up law was because of
Yes.
the injustices that she found out that because of race. Which really stuck with me, and she was kind of mentioning how the laws are racist in a lot of ways, but not saying it. So yes, that's very important what you said, the classification of race, where it came from. I hate to piggyback on that book is one of my most powerful, Dr. Claude Anderson, Powernomics, when he was like race is just like a track meet, it's
Mm.
it's like you racing for economic, political power, and so how she's breaking it down and how we being grouped is very important. And I can't wait for chapters 1 and 2 to get into it further.
No, I'm so glad, Brother Everett, that you mentioned that when she talked about, like you said, law and how
Mm-hmm.
law, she says on I think on the 10th page, she says in chapter 2, law as a labeling institution is explored. She says the
Mm-hmm.
series of laws that asserted and imposed the human category of race. So they couldn't have done this without invoking the law. So she said the
Exactly.
law was used as a labeled institution, the series of laws that asserted and imposed the human category white and its ideological underpinnings in the decades following the Bacon's Rebellion worked to discipline communities by transforming relationships among laborers and imposing a hierarchy that had not previously existed. So the law was also used to create this
Mm-hmm.
human category, white, And so again, I'm looking forward, Brother Everett, to just getting into this book.
Yes.
I don't have
Mm-hmm.
anything left to say. I think that we kind of we gave them the entire introduction, Brother Everett. So let's hold them up. Family, put your book in your ear, Brother Everett. Family, we are going to be discussing every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Birth of a White Nation, the Invention of White People and Its Relevance Today by Jacqueline Battalora. So if you don't have this book, family, get this book. And it's a short read, by the way. It's not one of those
Yes.
thick books. It's a short read. I think it's like 115 pages, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't have the book, be sure to head on over, get the book. Also, if you're interested in joining the Read Book Club, hit your sister up on Facebook. All right. You can hit me up or you can hit Brother Everett up on Facebook. Okay. So hit me up on Facebook, say, Dr. Ma'at, please add me to the book club. I'll put you in our Facebook book club chat, our Facebook book club chat. And so that you could be, so that you could be active as a book club member. Okay. And also head on over to Hockey Customs on Instagram and grab your Read Book Club t-shirt. I'm gonna try to scoot back so you can see it again.
You
Yeah,
put that in the chat, Dr. Ma?
Yes, I put it in the chat earlier, but I'll put it on the screen again. You can go to Hockey Customs. And I hope that I'm spelling it right. He probably say, "Good, what you doing? You ain't spell my stuff right." Hold on. Yes, Hockey Customs. All right, so that's the t-shirt. Yep, the Read Book Club family, the Read Book Club. Regain, elevate, aspire, determine, the Read Book Club. So join us back here next week as we discuss. We're going to discuss chapter 1, the creation white people, the creation. So the creation of white people, chapter 1, will be back here next week at 7 p.m. to discuss the creation of white people. As Brother Everett and I said, at the beginning of this broadcast, there's no such thing as white. We say white people, but when I'm on Facebook, Brother Everett, I go like this. I put it in quotes because I understand that it's really, is no such thing as a human category. Well, they made it a human category, but there's no such thing as white or whiteness. This was a human category that was invented, and it was invented for a purpose. It was invented for a reason. And you all are going to learn the reason or reasons while reading Birth of a White Nation. And she's going to also get into how this creation or this invention of whiteness has impacted the lives of people who are non-white. And so, I mean, I'm telling you, when she came on the show, Brother Everett, and she's like, yeah, before 1640, nobody referred to themselves as white. People were British, they were Irish, they were Dutch, they were Portuguese. And she went, it was a beautiful discussion. So that's another thing, family. If you did not watch the interview that I had with Dr. Jacqueline Battalora, who was the author of Birth of a White Nation, go back and you could do a quick search on YouTube, Dr. Battalora. It'll pop up. It was a really short interview, maybe 45, 50 minutes, but it was a very powerful interview. And she talked about her book and all of the information contained in it. Brother Everett, do you have any closing words, brother?
No, it was great. I didn't even know you interviewed her, so I got to check that out myself. I must have missed that one. So yeah, the introduction just was very powerful, and I'm just very excited. Hopefully everybody can get the book and tune in.
Absolutely. I see brother Sean came back. We're getting ready to close up, Brother Sean. Do you have any last words for the listening audience?
My last words would be, I can't wait until next Sunday. I cannot wait until going through this whole adventure with you all and learning more from Brother Everett and yourself and anybody else, a part of the family. Thank y'all very much. Peace.
Peace. I want to say peace to I see Shaka Ra King is in the building, Infinite Minds. Baba Kwame, New Black World Order, one of the best moderators on YouTube. Pierre Black is in the building. I saw that my mother Anna's here. John Tay, I'm glad that you were able to join us, brother. I know you and I were conversing on Facebook, and I think you said you have read the book a while ago, but you were willing to read it again. Brother Harold Hamilton, thank you for joining us. Sister Tiffany Alfredale King, thank you for joining us. My young warrior, Jeremiah Africa is in the building. Brother, thank you for supporting and joining. IPDH, thank you so much. It says Congo, comma. James Powell is in the building. KC is in the building. And another moderator, Sister Anusha, is in the building. My big bro, JT Coin Rings, is in the building. He was one of the brothers who, remember when we were doing Blueprint for Black Power? Mm-hmm. Brother JT, brother JT Coin Rings, Brother Tuolo. He's Brother Tuolo who was participating in the chat. So peace to you, brother. Peace to Shango 67. Peace to you, Brother Sean P. I see you in the building. Omega Sun Spot, peace to you. I like to be more fast 26, peace to you. And my mother said, look at this. Oh, I love my mommy. She said, very informative. Thank you, Mama. Thank you, Mama. And Sister Tracy Johnson from Indiana is in the building. So family, join us back here. Same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, your sister will be on time. She is going to be on time next week. So join us back here, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to talk about Chapter 1 of Birth of a White Nation by Jacqueline Battalora. In the meantime, grab your book, family. And please, when you grab the book, go to see if a black independent bookstore has it before you run to Amazon and give, what's his name? Jeff Bezos. Is that Jeff Bezos? That's it. But before you give him some money, go to your local bookstore. See if they have it, your local black independent bookstore. See if they have it first. And if they don't have it, then you got to do what you got to do, right? And also be sure to watch the interview that I had with Dr. Jacqueline Battalora. All right, family, we'll see you next week. Peace, love, and light.